It isn't the just sort of get out there and maybe you come back kind of thing. It's just sustainable, multiple decades of activity is what we seek. And so when we're satisfactorily accomplish that, the puzzle comes together, and then you get a second of reflection.
I can remember clearly the early projects in Turkey with Todd. I remember sitting on a cliff overlooking the water in the middle of the Atlas Mountains thinking about what would become of GUE, and I remember fondly now, I'm glad we had that conversation and kept trying to imagine what it was. I think it might sound arrogant to say, yes, I imagine GUE to become what it is today, and I imagine more for it. I mean, for me, I think, in a way, we're really just getting started.
Probably the most frequent question that I get asked is, why dive in the caves? One of my favorite responses is to just imagine yourself being able to go to whatever remarkable natural place does it for you, and then just be able to imagine that you can be the first person to be there, that nobody else in the world has ever seen it, and you get to be the first one to visit that spot.
In any great endeavor, there's so many nameless people, and you always feel bad that you can't call them out. Many of them have moved on to other things over the years, but I still talk to a lot of those that were even helpful in the early years.
I was just doing a lot of diving in the Bahamas, and a guy on one of my diving trips was a cavern instructor, and then I took cavern with him, and then cave with Parker Turner, and I met Jared at Ginny Springs, and then I started diving with him and went from there. We did dives at Wakulla Springs and then Leon Sink's cave system. Those were pretty wild because we're using open circuit. We just had to figure out how to go further and further with open circuit. Basically we're a stage bottle lasts 6 minutes. And our main thing was to try to standardize equipment so that we knew each other's equipment and we could help each other. What GUE did and continues to do is outstanding. Yeah, Jared did a good job of that. I mean, that whole organization, GUE, they taught this from the beginning. So you'd end up with some pretty competent divers, on the matter of safety and how to conduct these dives. A lot of the stuff we did was, off the chain, but it applies to every kind of diving.
So Mark Singer, you just got out of Turner Sink. What are you going to do tomorrow?
We're going to Hooters.
Going to Disneyland.
Going to support Jared, George and Casey when they had about 6,000 feet of line to check.
The first time I meet Jared, I show up for Cave 1 class. There's like 10 instructors here because they're all candidates, and it's like instructor candidate class number 1. I mean, look at the pressure of this, right? I mean, like 5 instructors and five instructor candidates, and you're doing your Cave 1 class. Never looked at a cave in your life, right? So there's me, doing my best not to do the windmill as I'm trying to find a tie-off in Ginny Springs. I loved it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to move to High Spring. Like immediately, Cave 1, I'm like, I'm moving to High Spring. And that's when I sort of really got to meet Jared and talk to him and say, hey man, I'm thinking about moving down here.
I became a full cave diver and an instructor, open water instructor. I started inquiring about working in High Springs area, showed up at Ginny, had to wait around for 3 hours. Well, apparently I was waiting for Jared to finish a class, so the guy that was running Ginny at the time could let Jared know, hey, you need to make sure you've got everything out of the trailer because this kid's going to move in there. That's how I met Jared for the very first time.
I met him at University of Florida, and he was taking a class from my then best friend, Paul White. Jared was pretty keen to dive, and I was pretty keen to dive, so it worked out pretty well. And we took him on his first cave dive before he was cave certified.
I kept doing a bunch of research, and Jared's name kept coming up and coming up and coming up. So I called him on the phone and I said, "Hey man, I want to learn to cave dive." I showed up, and remember, instructor trainer, I own a store, I've got 5 instructors working for me, and I'm the it when it comes to diving in the community. And I showed up to cave class the first day with Jared, and by day 3 of that class, I went to Jared and said, "Hey man, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I can do it or not." And Jared changed the game, man. He said, "Look, man, there's a lot of work to do here." And he goes, "If you're up for it, I'm here." And it sort of changed my diving forever. And I sort of continue to pay that forward to this day, you know, recognizing that I was not naturally gifted talent, but he spent a lot of time and effort developing that, you know, and so I am the end result of that initial investment that he put in 25 years plus ago. I mean, this was pre-GUE. GUE didn't exist back then. This was Jared pouring in before even GUE was formed.
I had actually done some of my cave training with Jared Jablonski back in the mid-90s, and so I knew him through that, and we started talking about WKPP. So I ended up getting involved with WKPP through knowing him and hearing about the amazing work that they were doing. And I was in college at the time, and then when I finished my college degree, I ended up joining GUE as operations manager. So I was there at the headquarters when they first kicked everything off and kind of helped with a little bit of everything as the organization started to grow. There are a lot of people who I think were excited to be a part of something like GUE, and were looking for something to be part of that was like GUE. And so the global membership just grew so fast. I remember it was early on, I think it grew faster than we probably anticipated, which is fantastic, but we had a lot of interest very early on.
Being here in Tennessee, Panos was actually living here in Tennessee and so he was on the team, and I was hearing about the WKPP. And of course, going down to Florida teaching cave diving classes while owning Ray's Diving up here, I knew everybody and was friends with Berman and friends with Jared and everybody. And I was getting ready to stop doing the training director thing just because of the time involved. And I asked Jared if he would be interested, because he was on the board and part of the training group we had. Asked him if he would want to be a training director. And he goes, "Yeah, but I got to tell you, I'm about to start my own agency." So we sat down and talked all about it. And I thought, man, I'm in, coach, you know, if you'll consider me. And he goes, "Yeah, I'll take over and do it." And he did it for, it wasn't 6 months, I don't think. By then, he and Todd were getting cranked up with GUE. I kind of poured myself into GUE very heavy in the early days, with everything from helping with the training council, writing the materials, the standards. Of course, photography has always been a big passion of mine. And if there's one thing I can say that made me know that this would last, it would be, you know, I'm attracted in everything I do, whatever it is in my life. I look for people that are ethically, morally sound, that are strong and powerful people. And I found such a core of that with GUE. My favorite saying in GUE is the commitment to excellence. It just attracted a level of people that were committed to excellence. And I don't really settle for anything else in my life. And so I want to be around people with that same mindset. So that was probably the thing that let me know for sure it was going to last, is it was built on the foundation of people that were just committed to excellence.
JJ's going to go further carrying stuff on out. So mid-90s, we were almost exclusively focused on, at least on my behalf, just trying to develop this rebreather technology. The PBR Bass, the original Halcyon rebreather. We started to realize that once that machinery solution was in place, then it was like, all right, now we need a bunch of really good, capable people that can just keep doing these dives. And that's where the training organization just emerged, from that need for standardization and high level of commitment to excellence. And, you know, it was born right there before our eyes. And I don't think we even knew what was happening at the time. It just happened. And it made total sense. And it makes so much more sense today as we look back.
Italy historically has been a very important community for GUE. It is still nowadays. We were a team already of very dedicated divers. We were doing activity on the wrecks in Croatia mainly. Especially Marasic and myself started reading all this bunch of email of these mailing lists. And we were going through this stuff. In the beginning, it was looking a bit crazy. It was George Irving talking. But then there were also very interesting advices. So we tried to put them into diving, and every single piece was working properly. So it was actually working very well in respect to what we were doing at the time. And then we had a first formal training here in Europe. It was Gerald, Andrew at the time, Bob Sherwood, Richard Langren. Training was much less refined than what it is now. But during that class, I liked very much the teaching methodology and the spirit of the instructors and everything. So I decided I want to be part of that. And also, I don't remember who, but a couple of the instructors that were teaching, the GUE instructors, asked me, why don't you become an instructor for GUE? That is how it started, actually.
A short story of how my career in diving started. First as a dive master and then as an instructor with a dive school. After like about 8-9 years that I did my first GUE class, it's like by then I had heard about these legendary divers, who diving in Florida, who were able to do these amazing dives in a cave deep, and naturally, I wanted to know what this was about. I think the story is pretty much the same as with many who come to know about GUE. The first class was mind-blowing, and then after that, it was like, I want to do GUE for the rest of my diving career, my diving experience.
I learned about GUE from an ad from the Swedish brothers, the Lundgren trio. I think it was in a magazine. I saw an ad they had, and it said GUE, and I directly contacted them and asked what is GUE, and that's how it started for me.
I started my interaction with GUE before it was even founded, so I was part of the founding group of GUE. So I met Gerald and George Irvin quite early on in the 90s. Our interest in deep diving and cave diving brought us all together. So we refer to often as the three Swedish brothers that came over to Florida to do crazy dives together with Gerald and George.
Kind of sit back and see something that was a vision become a reality when so many people didn't see it, as an incredible feeling of, hey, we've accomplished so much of the original goals that were set out to create an international infrastructure of capable, focused, motivated people that are really truly bringing exploration and research to the forefront in their communities, in which we would have never been able to have that magnitude had we stayed in our own local community. But only through the process of building something that was scalable both regionally, locally, and globally, it's kind of getting to sit back and go, yeah, man, here it is. You just get excited about it.
Finding the people who've stuck with us for so long is really, I think, quite an accomplishment of the organization. It's quite a transition from one person to literally teams across the world working for the organization to further its mission, and it's very remarkable.
There are several groups doing nice activity, organized activities, projects, interacting with scientists and institutions. And there is a lot of people having fun, especially doing dives that 20 years ago would have been considered extreme or extremely dangerous. Meanwhile, they're done now with easy and just having fun out of it. There is the need for a genuine organization like GUE to write a new page in the diving industry or in the sport of diving, actually.
It'll probably always be the pinnacle of my career, those years that we worked together at Wakulla Springs. Project Baseline grew out of that because the realization was that none of these great things would have happened, like the $250 million advanced wastewater treatment system in Tallahassee would have never happened if it wasn't for the collaboration with the divers. That's how it came to be. And what we realized is that we have the possibility to do exactly the same thing or something very similar to that all over the world. This relative explosion of GUE in terms of popularity and education, you know, really opened up these doors to do things all over the world.
And it was always the foundation of GUE that gave me the ability to keep reaching higher and going further and meeting great friends that shared the same passion for exploration and ingenuity and innovation. And we literally developed the products and the techniques and the personal capabilities. And without GUE, that much of that would have never happened.
Hundreds of late night conversations about where GUE could go. How big could it get? How far could it reach? How many people could it touch? 25 years later, watching that actually manifest. That's pretty amazing, right? That's pretty amazing to watch a vision not just succeed, but like thrive. You know, how many people try to mimic what GUE did, but they'll never be able to do it because they're not GUE. No matter where they go, GUE is always, you know, a step ahead.
I hope that the organization will continue to be an inspiration for others to emulate, to follow, to imitate. I believe that GUE will be relevant to the diving world for many more years.
We have always had the credo to start with the end in mind, right? I thought I knew the end, but the older I become, the less sure I am what the end would be. Is there such a thing? Maybe GUE is like the universe continuing to expand for infinity.
I'm very proud of where GUE is at today and of our community, our instructors, instructor trainers, staff. Everybody is just really remarkable people. And I think the funny thing about, you know, being younger or less senior in any operation is you're always kind of looking around and letting other people lead. But I think what's really critical is you realize that all of you out there, all of the people who are younger and up and coming in the organization, this is your organization and it's your future. And dozens of people who I would, you know, get hoarse naming all the dozens, hundreds of people that have built the organization to this point. We want to stick around and help, but it's really passing to that next generation. So we're really looking for ways to encourage everyone out there, all of you who might come to the organization, who've thought about it, who are in the organization, let's build the next 25 years as significant and robust and exciting as the last 25 years. These next several years are really going to start to build a tremendous groundswell so that in the next 25 years, when we do this interview again and start talking about GUE and that 50-year anniversary, we're going to look back and say, wow, you know, did you imagine it could become this? And I hope to say yes.
My message to Jared would be thank you. Thank you for the vision.
Congratulations to Jared and the team.
I hope to dive together again.
Happy 54th birthday, or 54 and a half birthday, JJ.
Thank you for all the support over the years.
Hats off to Jared for his vision.
Never lost the idea to keep on doing what people tells you is impossible or hard.
The only thing I can think of is to say thank you.
Thank you for being the best arguer in history.